had. But there were these two families. It was let's see, Harmon G. and Amelia Lucas, and Richard S. and Francis J. Settles. And I don't know if you have any information about them.
I haven't heard.
Haven't heard them. Okay. So this is sort of the email that I had tried to send you with the attachments. Okay, so that all goes with that.
But I actually asked my Uncle Bob also, Rob Garrett.
Yeah. So that's where it connects, because Barbara Hopkins is the one who basically came to Edina Historical Society and donated these surviving diaries. So it's not every year, it's like 8 diaries out of a 20-year period.
Yeah.
And as much as B.C. Yancey is described as a great speaker and a significant person in the community, his diary is real brief and, words here and there, but anyways, Barbara Hopkins is the one who donated those diaries, and that's the last one is 1915. That made it it was just transcribed this year. And what it said is Ellen Gillespie, born 1904, mother of Barbara Hopkins and Robert Garrett Jr., retired Army colonel living in his native Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So that's
right. Yeah, Uncle Bob.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
He has a son, Junior Rob.
Okay.
Robert Jr.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah. So what I read, and this goes back to maybe January or so, what I read on the website was the very detailed research and description of the other side of the family.
Right.
But I thought I remembered something. Was there some reference to the Yancey side or some?
Well, I just started because I know William Whipper, who did the eulogy of William Wilberforce.
Mm-hmm.
They were in Ohio and also D.C. And these marriages happened, which I'm a result of. So there had to be a connection. There had to be a connection, and this was during the Underground Railroad. And I'm trying to find that formal, how they actually connected, because even John Jones's granddaughter, he's in Chicago. He was an abolitionist in Chicago, and William Whipper's great-grandson and great-daughter, they married. So I found that connection. Then the Yancey side, they were there, and so I have to find exactly, how did it intertwine?
Yeah.
And that's really interesting. But so this actually this side of it, because the even my father's mother's those aunts and uncles, they were doing all kinds of stuff. And it's it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, what I read, you were describing some pretty prominent people that in the history of back in Chicago, I think.
Yeah. That's the Joneses.
Yeah.
And Alonzo Herndon, which was the wealthiest African American in North America, was married to Aunt Jessie. So it was Jessie Gillespie, and they were in Atlanta, and which they were sponsors of Morehouse and Spelman back then, but they had Atlanta Life and Casualty Insurance, and that's just one side. But she had a hair line and hair products going up and down the East Coast, and that was Jessie Gillespie, and
because I don't know, we know about William E. Gillespie, but not necessarily more about that part of the family.
But see, B.C. married Ellen Bruce.
That was
that's where my name Bruce comes from. It comes from that line.
Oh, great.
Right.
Yeah, because that was his second wife, and he had just the two children, Charles and Ellen.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, and then Ellen reappears as the granddaughter, I think, is this Ellen Gillespie, mother of Barbara Hopkins. Is that right? So we keep on coming across names.
Yeah. And Robert Garrett, him and my father, they kind of grew up together, and they spent really their whole young life together in Los Angeles. Then he came here to D.C. with his father, which was Lee Purnell, who married Madeline Gillespie, which is my grandfather. They came to D.C. and Robert, of course, he was in the Army. He got married and went to California. But he knows a lot because my cousin Henry Robinson wrote a book, a genealogy book, and which had captured this history. There's a lot of history captured in this book.
So is that published, like shared with the family, or is it something that we could?
It should be accessible because he published it. Okay. He was a professor at Morgan. He passed now. He was a professor at Morgan State University, and he published it, so it should be accessible through the Library of Congress. My mother has my copy, and she won't give it to me.
What's
she said all I want to do is lose it. Is I think it was she said.
What's do you know what the name of the book is, or what's his name?
Henry Robinson. Henry Robinson Jr.
Okay. So I'll tell you the sort of shape of what we understand and why I'm so intrigued, and also something else we might be doing besides trying to name a park after Yancey. And I didn't bring much with me. Part of what bothered me a little bit, and even Susie Shorter, who's coming and talking about the Yancey visit, is talking about the berry farm. Well, Yancey owned like 126 acres, and this other family that settles, I'm pretty sure we're related in some way, owned another 126 acres right next. So they started out owning a large amount of property in the community, and over the years they sold off and subdivided. But they keep on talking about this berry farmer, and he's actually, he was with the Minnesota State Horticultural Society, gave lectures at the state, and had people visit him and talk about sort of the science of farming. So he wasn't just what somebody else called basically a subsistence farmer. He was advanced. He came in, not everybody bought property, not everybody had the chance, but he was the one who came in, bought property, and farmed it, and was trying to raise the level in a lot of ways. And at the same time, so there's like these half dozen families, a lot of them related to each other maybe, and some go off this way and that way. But he's the key. He's the one who stays in the community from the very beginning. He's active in the local community and what became Edina. But also when you read this African-American newspaper, The Appeal or the Western Appeal, he's living in two communities, in two societies. It's back in the 1870s in Minneapolis. And he's a leader of the Minneapolis-St. Paul Twin Cities African-American community, a very respected person who, when they have, whether it's Emancipation Day or whatever it is, he's like the president of the association and the main speaker. So, you know, he's part of both worlds at the same time. And in the, I don't know if you're familiar with the Grange, which started in Minnesota. It was a national movement, but it was of note because it was egalitarian. Women had full membership, and minorities. So BC and Ellen were from the beginning charter members, and their kids and their nieces and nephews, and for many years they were tied into the Grange. And William Gillespie was actually the head of the Grange in 1915. So what I'm trying to do is understand the community, these families, what there was about the community that brought them in and honored them and gave them positions like chair of the school board and recorder of the village. And then, so if you know anything about Edina history, it takes a turn about 1921, as a lot of the country did, and you start seeing racially restrictive deeds in the real estate, developments. And what was it about the community early on when these families settled there and were active there into the 1920s, 30s, 40s, etc. Now it's sort of taken another turn because we have a Human Rights Commission and we want to recognize the diversity within the community today, but also, very importantly, talk about these families that lived there and were an integral part of the community. So that's what we're doing. And the people, I mean, there's at the University of Minnesota Black Studies programs, and there's a producer with Twin City Public Television, Daniel Bergen, who did a two-part documentary a few years ago called North Star Pioneers, and he won some Emmy Awards, if that makes any difference, but he's really a very good producer, and he wants to do a part 3, and one of the names on that part 3 list is the Yancey family.
Oh, wow.
So whatever you can do to help tie us in to, from
definitely.
your background, whether it's genealogy or family history or somebody who's still alive today, and hopefully come and visit us. Follow. Is it your great grandfather? Is that follow in his footsteps?
Exactly.
I mean, we'd be excited to see you there.
Oh man, I'd love to come. This is fascinating.
Okay.
Wow, this is thanks so much for I mean just the history itself, but it ties it together.
Yeah.
Because you know, the part of the pieces of identity, we find even with the young people, the piece of being separated from any kind of real identity and then moving more to a commercialism now, which is crazy in the communities. So this, like, you know, it's kind of like it ties it together. It makes sense because there has to be a story, and the story has to be told for people to understand, like, what happened.
Yeah. What
happened, and it's a piece it's a piece that's missing. I mean, for me, going from like the kind of the 1930s, like, what happened?
Yeah.
You know what, and that was a big part of it. You know, that side, because you know, we're the rest of the Gillespies. Like right now it's me and Uncle Bob, and Robbie, but I don't really know where anyone else is. So,
do you know of anybody else? I mean, I'm new to genealogy and a novice, and I was impressed by taking a look at the information you had. There's somebody who I haven't contacted. It's a Dennis Yancey, maybe Miami University. You ever hear of him? He's got some information on a website, but any other connections as the family is spread out over the generations that might be interested, or I at least as far as we're aware, in Edina, talking to anybody that we could find, there's no like family Bible that would have had all that information firsthand written down.
Yeah. That's what made the Shad piece. It made it because they had Bibles and stuff, in Chatham, Canada, and here, so you could actually go to the Bible, and it made it easier. Like, but I will. What I'll do, I'll email Uncle Bob and CC you on the email and see what we're trying to do, what we can find. I know he has a couple of. He does have the Henry Robinson book.
Okay.
You know, he has it in possession, and I'm trying to pry it from my mother, and I'll see who else, because I was asking him just a couple months ago, like, who, you know, do we have any other family? Because I'm trying to get together like a family reunion, so we can all, like, you know, come together. And because I know in Minnesota, I have articles of like the first African American stewardess of Delta was a Gillespie, or maybe either Yancey or Gillespie, but in Minnesota, and just different stuff like this. The first African American lawyer, I think, that graduated from Harvard and actually in Minnesota had a practice, and it's connected to this side of the family. And
remember what his name is?
I can find out.
Because there's somebody, there's sort of a loose end where you keep on running across these same family names, and I see a little bit here and there, and all of a sudden I realize that might have been the most prominent African American attorney in Minnesota. I'm not good with names, which is sort of a strange thing to say, but you know.
Yeah. But I'll pull that stuff together. I'm even more excited to now. I wish I wasn't going out of town this week. I have this training to do.
Well, when you emailed back, I'm sorry not to have gotten in touch with you sooner, but when you said, you know, it came that close to not connecting. This is the first time I should visit more often here. You dragged me back on home, and it's been 4 years. Not that we haven't seen each other for 4 years, but I almost got here 2 years ago, and I won't get into that story, but there was a health issue connected to Minnesota deer ticks. Not very interesting, no, but it was intended to be a visit 2 years ago, but the fact that you could make it tonight, that's great. I really appreciate it. Because emails, everybody knows emails, and everybody talks on the phone, but if I can meet somebody face to face, that's much better.
And I'll tell you, if you don't mind me jumping in, as somebody who's not really related, you know, like my dad said, he's an architect and he's a historian and he's really interested in Minnesota history, and since I was a little kid, I've, you know, seen him doing research about the history of Minnesota, and he just has this real desire to get to know how the communities were formed, right? And so growing up in Edina, you know, it's a very, I went to school there, and it's a very white Christian place. And I think everybody sort of talks about this sense that it really isn't diverse. We know that there were these restrictive covenants, black people, Jews, all, you know, it was really homogeneous. And so when my dad mentioned to me that he had been involved in this Edina Historical Society and the Grammy Project, and that actually it was these prominent African American families who had really been, you know, the crux of the community and the landowners during this time period, I was shocked. I mean, I had no idea. And having grown up there, it's just fascinating, blows my mind, you know?
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
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 So
Wow.
I see, hopefully, you know, this park, this plaza at the community center. I don't think we can get the community center named Yancey, because I think that's going to have to take some like big donor that comes in and wants to be recognized or something. But I think the public space, the plaza, needs that name, and then there
That's
will.
excellent.
I see markers and historic interpretation all around in the park, in the building, talking about what went before, and the history.
He's done a lot of that before.
Yeah,
in other
the history
places.
centers behind this, and
That's
I think
excellent.
you know it's. I'll give you one other just example. Something came up. I mean, people are hungry for the story of this family. This woman contacted the Historical Society, and an email got sent to me, and she said, "I'm looking for African American women who were business owners early on in the community. How about Ellen Yancey?" And I said, "Well, you know, she's the wife of the farmer, and they were in the business together, I guess. But a lot of what she did in the community, a lot of what she was about, wasn't necessarily being a business owner. But okay, I'll tell you what I know about her, and you tell me if that fits what you're trying." Because she was trying to get her recognized in an award, an honor, you know, in her name. But the Yancey name keeps on coming up all the way through. Anybody who's interested in the African American history of Minnesota. And I spent much more time than I expected to back last November, December, trying to figure out who all as many of these people as I could and how they might have been connected. And this is a small piece of it, but it's probably most specific to knowing who your family was.
Yeah.
So I think you'll get a kick out of some of this, like the account of the wedding or the diary, things like that, where you can just reach out and touch and hear their voices.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best.
Yeah.
But as much of a story as we can tell, in any way that you can help.
Oh yeah,
That'd be great.
Yeah, I'm definitely on it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, this is this whole movement, the Higher Hopes, and you have the Overground Freeway, which is like it's in memory of ancestors who that's what they fought for, like you know, freedom, education, empowerment. So I'm trying to pass that on. And the more I understand, the more I can actually embody that and then pass that on. Because I think it's a reason. It's a reason for it. And finding out, and that's how it kind of shaped my whole development. So that's finding these things out. I'm like, I can't, you know, it was a shift in what success was for me, because it wasn't more like going for status. It was more like just empowering people, giving a voice to the voiceless. So it became kind of that, because that's what they kind of did. Like they had wealth, but it wasn't wealth for the sake of wealth. They used it to help people. So. Yeah, so this is, you know, I can't, whoa, man, this is,
Well,
you know.
I've been surprised so many times in my life by connections that can be made. You know, you don't know about it until somehow, my daughter has all these friends, all these layers of friends here that have gravitated to DC, and so I'm teasing her because we're going around the last few days, and everywhere I go, she knows somebody. So, but it's connections from the last 15 years. It's people that she knows from everywhere. So, how do you make connections, and how do you tell a story? That's, as much as anything else, that's what I enjoy and appreciate.
And family.
Yeah.
Well, family history is really important to us. My mom's parents were Holocaust survivors, and that really shaped for all of the subsequent generations. our identities and who we were, and so family history is really important to us, and there's so many pieces of the history before the war that we don't know, because we can't find records like this, because it was all, destroyed, and so to think that my dad helps other people do that is really cool, it's awesome.
Yeah, which is another story,
Yeah.
And that's how we all come together. Yeah. Wow.
Right?
So,
Makes a lot of
yeah.
sense.
anyways, I'm really pleased to meet you, and I hope that this is just the beginning of some sort of partnership
Oh,
we can put
definitely
together.
is.
I'm speaking for myself, but I share that message from people in the community, and we're looking forward to making stronger connections.
Excellent.
You should come out to Minnesota. You should not do it in the winter, though.
Yeah.
It's cold as hell in the winter.
I've seen the Vikings play.
Well,
Love
this
something nicer.
story, that's told by it might have been Robert Garrett Jr. that he understands his it was William Gillespie that came, with Ellen to Los Angeles, out to California, and apparently it was a little bit of let's check it out, let's go back. He was sort of in Toronto, sort of in Minneapolis, just making the family move.
Mm-hmm.
And the story, anyways, that's told by the grandson that he remembers is that it was cold.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm intrigued by what makes somebody pick up and move, and that's a major decision. You ended up your family back and forth and all the way out to D.C. I don't think it was that they felt unwelcome in the community.
I heard they were really welcome.
They were tied in. They were a respected family.
Yeah.
And so I'm inclined to think it was the weather, but that might also be a story you tell your grandchild. And I wish that we had something more than 1915.
Yeah.
But that, I think, you'll recognize names, and at the end of this is something that you might pick up on, which is that it's like some people kept diaries and they kept journals, and at the end of it was almost like an address book, and these are all the people she was in contact with. And you might recognize some name here in Chicago or up in Canada or out in California, but this was the name. This was her world of contacts back in 1915. So read through that. Maybe
I could keep,
maybe you're going to recognize something here that I don't.
Wow.
Okay. So, anyways, it was great that, and I think 3 out of 8 or so of the diaries have been transcribed. And then the woman who was helping with that said, okay, because the handwriting, at least BC, Yancey's handwriting was a little bit unique, and he abbreviated a lot of things, and spelling wasn't too important, which is fascinating to me because I think he was a very literate man and an excellent speaker. And but it didn't come through. It didn't come through in the
Now, what's his name? Beverly or Beyondly?
It's Beverly.
Okay, in the census records, it changes.
Well, with census records, 1 year born, another year born, exact names, and then also, even if you see the original page that the census taker wrote down the name, by the time he hears it and he writes it down, but Beverly, and he went by, a lot of people went by initials, BC,
Right.
and that's what you hear the most. But you got you're tied in with this great story that we're also trying to discover. So
this is great. This is great.
I saw, I didn't see all you had at the time, like January. I think there were like 60 videos on your website.
Yeah.
Well, the one or two that I didn't watch more than a few, but there were 1 or 2 where the students were taking on roles, and there were some that were like class discussions or sitting on a couch talking about something, but there were a few of the I'll call them plays, but they're like dramatic situations that I really enjoyed watching. I think that was great. So I don't know exactly how the whole organization is tied in together, but that was really interesting to watch those.
Yeah, we found that if we have group sessions we call Real Talk,
right,
unfiltered, just whatever's going on in your life, be able to, we're not going to judge you, just get it out.
Yeah.
And as the stories come out, we either write script, we'll do visual arts or something we'll get it out that way, and we'll come up with solutions. So all the young people act out the solutions, and they love to act, and it ends up being therapeutic, and then it helps others. So we either perform it live, sometimes where the community can come out and they can see, and they can say, this is what's going on with the children, and this is how we get through it. And so that's kind of the model. But we're starting, and I know it works because the children gravitate to it because they want to get it out. So, yeah.
You got some production equipment here.
And that's what we do. We do well, every third Sunday now we have a radio show called Real Eyes, and we talk about different topics. But we're getting ready to start like every week shooting a video talk show. We have both young people and adults coming in just talking about what's going on, and we have a music studio on the other side where you can come in, they can record, but we control the content because now we think the content is, that's the fight. It's destructive, and so our tagline is redefining cool. So because right now cool is destructive, so we come up with an alternative that's also cool. So you come in and do the music and stuff, but be positive, have fun, integrity. You'll do well. Have fun and party. You don't have to be destructive. So yeah, so that's what we do. Like and it's fun. Gives life meaning. And this, this is the other thing. When I started to get into it, I'm like, wow, man, I'm supposed to be doing this. Yeah.
So I felt I knew you from there's so much on the website, telling your own family history and also the projects and work that you do. So I enjoyed that. I really intended to get in touch with you back like January or February, and I had this pull because we did this. But it was like December 12th. We had this whole program. It was a good program, and then I was like, I've got to catch up with other things. So I let it drop. But I knew this was coming up, and I'm just so glad that you had that bit of time here tonight.
Also, because because I would have left actually had I not talked to you. I would have left this morning. Yeah. And I was like, nah, really, it's I just felt that it was something. Yeah. It was something, and now I really know it's something. Yeah. And it's a reason. Yeah. It's a reason. Yeah. It's a bigger reason. So.
This is so cool. I mean, I wish that I had something like this from my grandparents, right? Like, my dad asked me to print the stuff out at work on Friday when he came in, and I was printing it out and I was reading it, and I was like, God, that is so amazing that you have that, your ancestors.
I'm like, that's Abraham Shadd. Are you familiar with him? Well, he's the one where he was